So first, Matt Gaetz tells us that he is the subject of a Department of Justice child sex trafficking investigation. And then Matt Gaetz tells us that he really needs a pardon. Looks like justice is barreling down on Matt Gaetz. And justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So, Matt Gaetz wanted then President Donald Trump to pardon him for crimes he committed. Here's how the New York Times broke that story last night. Headline: Matt Gaetz, loyal for years to Trump, is said to have sought a blanket pardon. The congressman was, at the time, under investigation over whether he violated sex trafficking laws. And the article begins, Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican of Florida, was one of President Donald Trump's most vocal allies during his term, publicly pledging loyalty and even signing a letter nominating the president for the Nobel Peace Prize. In the final weeks of Mr. Trump's term, Mr. Gaetz sought something in return. He privately asked the White House for blanket, preemptive pardons for himself and unidentified congressional allies for any crimes they may have committed, according to two people told of the discussions. Okay, let's start with the obvious. You don't ask someone for a pardon unless you've committed crimes. Now let's define a couple of the terms from the New York Times article. First of all, Gaetz wanted a preemptive pardon. What does that mean? He wanted to be pardoned before he was ever charged with the crimes he committed. He didn't want to be bothered with, arrests and court proceedings, convictions, and sentencings. So he wanted to be pardoned before he was ever charged. That's a preemptive pardon. Gaetz wanted a blanket pardon. What's a blanket pardon? Well, there are blanket pardons and then there are targeted pardons. A targeted pardon is, hypothetically, if Matt Gaetz had committed the crime of reckless driving and he went to Donald Trump, he said, look, boss, I really don't want to go to court for this reckless driving charge. Can you just pardon me for the offense of reckless driving on such and such a date? That's a targeted pardon. A blanket pardon, which is what Gaetz wanted, is a pardon for every crime you have committed over the course of your entire life. That's what Matt Gaetz sought from then President Trump. Now, what does it mean legally to ask someone for a pardon? Fortunately, the Supreme Court has told us. In a case more than 100 years old now, back in 1915, there was a case called George Burdick versus the United States. George Burdick was a newspaper man in New York. He was an editor for a paper called the New York Tribune. And back in the early 1900s, President Woodrow Wilson issued a pardon for George Burdick. George Burdick said, I don't accept it. I don't want a pardon because I didn't commit any crime. So that case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and here's what the Supreme Court said about pardons. The Supreme Court said, a pardon carries with it an imputation of guilt, and if you accept the pardon, that is virtually a confession of guilt. So, if we extend the Supreme Court rationale, if accepting a pardon is a confession of guilt, what is seeking a pardon, asking for a pardon, right? Coveting a pardon, desperately needing a pardon? Well, that is also plainly an admission of guilt, an admission that you have committed crimes and you need a pardon because you want to get away with your crimes. So it looks like justice may be barreling down on Matt Gaetz. And justice matters. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.